Hey out there, this is Friday, September 21st, 2018. And it's just about 5 minutes before 10 in the morning, or you could say 9:55 in the morning here in Northern California. Potatoes, potatoes, right? As usual, I'm going to get into a lot of different stuff. I wanted the theme to be kind of, waking up to the reality that our so called reality has been utterly hijacked, unequivocally so. And we're being manipulated, have been manipulated for a very long time in very powerful ways. Wanted to get into explore this critical mass business and really point out to understand critical mass is essential to understand the kind of stuff I'm trying to convey, which is really deep wisdom because the vast majority of people uh, don't explore deep wisdom often. They're very superficial, topical, secular. Um, what you see is what you get, and just they think they're being pragmatic by being that way. They think they have common sense and they're normal because they fit in with the thinking, the prevailing thinking and paradigm of the world system for the most part. They're not interested. They don't see the value, the pertinence, the relevance of learning the deeper wisdoms that are to be learned out there. And it's critical to understand this business of a critical mass. And you know what? It reminds me of in chapter 3 of the book of James, in this business of taming the tongue. And he points out what a small instrument steers such a large ship. And it's really that way when it comes to a critical mass, is that we're being led around by evildoers. And it doesn't have to be a large number of evildoers. A very small number will do. Even if it's one evildoer with all the power, that is the rudder of the ship, the good ship, planet Earth, and all humanity that goes along with the planet. What we're talking about here is the people that control us and how they control us. We're talking about the money masters of mass miseries of one sort or another. And nobody is immune. The rich aren't immune, the medium aren't immune, and the poor aren't immune. Okay, we're all feeling the heat of evildoers that are steering the ship. It's an evil rudder that's in control of planet Earth and, of course, humanity by extension, and where we're headed from here. And they're manipulating our language, they're dumbing us down. That's the Babylon factor. They're confusing us. They want us ignorant. They want us off balance. They want us disempowered. And what does knowledge, as we all believe, is powerful in that sense as a metaphor to, knowing, hey, what's going on, up from down, 2 plus 2, just the basic nuts and bolts of reality and logic and reason. And they don't want people to be empowered in that way. They don't want you to have rudimentary understanding of what the hell's going on here. They want us to believe that your neighbor is your enemy, or go to the city council. Everything's grassroots, and this. Hey, well, I'm fine with people concerning themselves with their, affairs of their local community. Understand that the problems in our local communities arise from the policies on high. You understand? The highest offices of the land, the highest controllers, those in power, those are the money masters. These are the people that own the copyright to the money in perpetuity. People, if you get the mainstream media out there, they're pointing the finger at the Bill Gates and the Warren Buffetts and the Carlos Slims and the Jeff Bezos and the Donald Trumps and on, right, with the billionaire class. We all know there's a multi-billionaire class that exists. But I contend strongly that these are far from the most powerful people in the world. Compared to the most powerful people in the world, these are paupers. These aren't the people that own the rights in perpetuity, apparently. perpetual rights to the money. Do you understand? The copyright. So this is federally like protected by the FBI, is their right to have this patent forever. More. I mean, apparently, right? I mean, that what can one say? I mean, when we know that JFK 55 years ago was in the process of nullifying, getting rid of, abolishing the Federal Reserve Bank, and yet they still exist today. I mean, that's some power. When you've got a federal, powerful arm of law enforcement, the upper echelon of law enforcement, the FBI, that can protect this criminal behavior, really, this is not what we the people want. We want accountability. We want checks and balances. We want security. We want slow, steady progress, real progress. We want to be free. And we've been going the opposite direction for a long time. And these are the people responsible. So in your local community, when they've got a problem with the homeless, just remember it's not your local politician's fault. Okay, it's not the law enforcement's fault. It's not the business owner's fault. And it's not the homeless people's fault. These are the definition of desperately poor people. Okay, we the taxpayers. Okay, how often do you hear the mainstream media educating you on this point? We the taxpayers pay 50 billion dollars annually to subsidize housing costs for those that cannot afford housing. Do you understand? So then we should all ask, what in Hades are we doing with all these homeless people and this problem getting worse when we're spending all this money every year, pouring this money into it, feeding this thing, this social welfare agency, so that we don't have homelessness. And yet the problem gets worse. What's going on? How could this happen? I mean, people bandy these terms about like socialism and capitalism, and nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. I'm telling you, I mean, it's not hard. It's child's play. It certainly isn't rocket science to understand basic fundamental economic principles. Being able to define progress, for example, relative to capitalism. Okay, it sets you free, and the way it sets you free is through prosperity. Okay, and it's not reserved for a select segment of the population. True capitalism, okay, creates prosperity across the board. It has to do with supply and demand and finding easier and easier methods of producing the stuff we need and the stuff we want. Okay, so those items, those commodities get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. If the wealth of the nation is being shared properly, judiciously, as it should be in a nation that calls itself just and seeking equality and egalitarian principles and precepts, right? Saying, hey, we don't discriminate, so why are we picking on this segment? These jobs. I mean, why are you discriminating against somebody that does this job and saying that that it's okay to subjugate them because they're unskilled labor and all they know how to do is pick food or work in a factory or a grocery store or whatever. They're just a fast food joint. There's just an endless array of minimum wage jobs out there. We all know that. Okay. So we know how this game works. We know where the discrimination is coming into play. It has to do with classism. If we had just simple checks and balances, there would have been there's plentiful simple solutions to have not only fixed this problem, but to have prevented it in the first place. But they can't steal from you. They can't rip you off. Okay? They can't steal the wealth of the people of the nation unless, okay, they commit trickery, shenanigans, unless they conjure up chaos and problems and divert your attention and disempower you, confuse you, discombobulate you by convoluting these subjects that are so simple a child can understand them. The whys and the wherefore, the rhyme and the reason. Why, progress is defined by X, not by Y, like they're trying to tell you it does, which is on its face erroneous and misleading and deceitful for them to tell you that there's any semblance of progress in America. We've lost freedom. Do you know how hard it is for the average Californian now to enter the realm of middle class home ownership now, it's but a pipe dream. It's pulling a rabbit out of the hat. And once you do, you just bought yourself a big money pit. You're gonna pay forever, and your taxes are gonna be through the roof. Your property taxes. It's a mess, man. We're in it so deep. We're in such a quagmire now. I know so few people understand what I'm talking about here. But anybody listening to me long enough, they're gonna get it. They're gonna say this guy knows what he's talking about. I do, and I believe in stepping way outside the box, way. Okay, turn to God, really, and just say, look, man, I don't know a lot of stuff. I know not from whence I came. I know not to where I go. I barely know those qualities and characteristic and attributes that make me who I am. I mean, why am I choosing these things? This is good. I'm glad I'm not choosing to be a sociopath, a psychopath, a murderous freak or something, a pedophile. It's our free will choice not to be that person. We could say, yeah, we're weak over here. Well, this is very common among men to have this besetting sin or that besetting sin. And God understands. I mean, He created us in such a way that we have a huge drive, for example, to eat, right? So a lot of people, they eat too much, they enjoy too much, gluttonous, and they get obese and overweight and unhealthy. Some people, they enjoy their sexuality too much. These are a couple, just two of very common besetting sins that people engage in. And God can understand and forgive and all that pretty easily. They're not deep rooted of the soul that that's you're going to lose your soul over these things. But when you harbor hatred in your heart and you don't do the things that are really essential to your eternal welfare and really care about your fellow human being just like yourself, to understand that your welfare is inextricably interconnected, and that's a good thing. If you were in your right mind, you'd understand that. But nonetheless, we've got to admit that we are in a mess as a race, as a species, that is supposed to be anointed to represent, to reflect the nature of the Creator Himself. And look at what we are as a race. And none of us, I don't care how righteous you are, you're not immune. You're not exempt. Okay, you don't get a waiver out of this thing. Okay, you don't get to opt out. We're all on the same ship, all in the same boat. Okay, and it's a boat that's careening to destruction. If the evildoers get their way, they believe in their minds that they're going to be safe in their ivory towers, wherever those ivory towers may be. But they believe that they've been wholly taken over by demonic spirits and deceived and believing that they've got to get rid of the vast majority of the population of the earth in order to save the planet. So they really think they're altruistic and that they are like the gods of the earth, that we need them, that they're the exalted ones, the anointed ones, these elitists.